How you do anything is how you do everything. Hi, I'm Larry Kaye, ShadowAnyone.com, and the creator of the Investigator's Ultimate Guide series, Premium Private Investigator Training from someone who's been there and done that. Today I'm going to share with you a real-life case study that I've kind of been holding off a while on. Wasn't really sure when would be the perfect time to share it with you. But it's about that time if you've been following me for a while, and it's about the very first time I was involved with helping make a felony apprehension. This is when I was very early in private security world. I worked something, it was a canine patrol. I was very honored and pleased and humbled to be accepted for that position. It was a private company job. They had businesses all over the city that they contracted with, and these businesses would have, they didn't want to necessarily have a guard there 24/7 or full time. So what they would do is they would have members of the canine patrol come through and patrol their properties in their buildings, their warehouses, whatnot, at different times. So a company might say, we don't want to guard there all the time, but we'd like the canine patrol to come through the area, say 3 times after midnight. Or we'd like canine patrol to come through every hour, that type of thing. And what we would do is we had uniforms and marked cars and the dogs, of course. And this is what we did. The city was divided into different sectors, north, south, east, west, central. And we patrolled, and it was actually a really fun job. I loved it a lot. I don't know if that business model is still really going on so much. I don't know of any other private sector canine patrols right now. But that's not the point of the story. So here it is. I'm ending up a very long patrol. These were 11-hour days. We worked all night long. And as I'm going back to the garage, one of the units in another sector gets dispatched on an alarm. Now, this is something that we did. It was cheaper for the companies to dispatch private sector security to go check out the alarm than to have the police respond, because eventually the police would begin fining them on false alarms. And as you know, if there's an alarm, they're always false. 99.9% of the time they're false alarms until they're not. So here's a case where I'm going back into the garage. I finished up patrolling my sector. I hear this alarm dispatch, and I pick it up for the other officer. And this is before dawn. It's still quite dark out. I know the place and the facility. As I approach, now normally the way a lot of guys would handle this is you drive up, you zip up to the front door, you press your nose against the glass, the alarm panel, oh, it's green, everything's fine, false alarm, looks okay out here. The way I used to handle these alarms, about a half a block out, I'd black out the car, almost coast up and listen from a distance, from out in the parking lot or out on the street, roll down the window so I could hear, and then move in if everything seemed okay. I had done this dozens, maybe hundreds of times as a canine patrol guy, and always, every time it's false. It's always a false alarm. And this was a dispatch on a power failure alarm, which is not even, maybe a transformer blew or something, it's circuit breaker, it's not a big deal. But I still treated it the same as I would a real deal, a real problem. And as I coasted up along the street with the windows rolled down, everything looked okay, but I heard the crunch, crunch, crunch of someone walking around on broken glass. Now, as I looked a little more closely, one of the large plate glass windows in the building was broken out. It's broken out completely. None of those little jagged edges. So it looked just like the window was still there, and only by listening was I able to tell that something was wrong and really take a closer look and see that it was broken out. Immediately I call into radio and say, hey, start the cops this way. We got a burglary in progress. And I sit and I watch as this guy comes out unloading merchandise from this facility. What I end up doing is the cops end up showing up. I direct the cops to this guy. They go over and they make the apprehension. And sometime I'll tell you a little more detail about the very interesting way this guy was committing the burglary, and a little bit more about how that apprehension actually went down. But my point is, in this case, and by the way, what the guy was thinking was, there's an alarm system here. He had taken a big rock and knocked the electric meter off the side of the building, his logic being no electricity, no alarm. And of course, we got dispatched on a power failure alarm to check it out. Same thing happens when people think they can cut the phone lines, but you know, they get a communications alarm, and nowadays there's cellular backup. So there's a lot of things. A burglar thinks that he's smarter than the system, and in this case, he wasn't. But my point is, how you do anything is how you do everything. How do you handle another stupid false alarm? Well, you handle it like it's the real deal. And this is how you raise your game. This is how you do better and better. And you might think, well, this is not something that really, you know, it's kind of almost exciting and cool, but it really happens with everything, including, I mean, little things in your life, like balancing the checkbook, comparing the numbers, making sure it adds up. You say to yourself, well, of course it adds up, or it's close enough, or I'm in the general ballpark. But what you do is every day you handle things professionally, you handle things correctly, so that when push comes to shove, you can handle it. You do not rise to the level of the threat. That's not what happens in the real world. In the real world, you default to the level of your training. So what you want to do is make sure you're trained well and you practice that training well. It'll serve you through your entire life, through your entire career. Remember, how you do anything is how you do everything. This is Larry Kaye, shadowanyone.com. Remember, do the right thing, even if it's the hard thing.